All right, I'm going to call this meeting of the Facilities and Safety Committee meeting together. End of session, excuse me. This meeting was properly posted as required by the Open Meetings Act of Texas. And the first item that we have on the agenda is the presentation of an update on the TRE and funded projects. Mr. Tapia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, Powers, and members of the committee, Dr. Neola, colleagues. Can you see the share screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, the first item basically is just a TRE projects update. First item I want to talk about is the Treasure Hills Phase 2. And you can see my cursor here. As you know, the big two-story wing project we did this past year is complete. It's everybody's in there. And we did this long drive with a circular drive coming in and out with a chiller plant in the middle. We do have temporary parking here in the back of playing field with Caliche for now, but we're very close to moving them to a parking space. Here in Phase 2, we're adding this administration building to this little classroom building that was already there. And I'll show pictures of that. We have commenced that part. We got a little addition back to the mini gym for storage and coach's office. We are enclosing and expanding the library into the old courtyard with an addition with some computer labs, GT rooms, and a sensory room. So that's a scope of Phase 2, which also includes this parking lot extension we did over here in the front along Haynes, which is complete and being used. And this big parking lot as well has been paved, and I'll show you some pictures of that. So overall, we're about 42% complete. I'll just go straight to the pictures that'll show you the progress that we've made. This slab for the library courtyard and expansion has been poured. The CMU walls are going up. CMU means concrete masonry units, which is basically the block walls are going up. We're starting to set some frames for some doors. And there's a steel frame that was added on the current library where the roof joist will sit on the new addition. And this is some more, and a little bit further out shot of the block wall that's going up with the reinforced rebar in between the blocks. And as you know, getting out of the ground takes a while by digging up the foundation, putting in the fill dirt, compacting, getting all the testing, and relocating any underground lines that are there. But so once you pour the slab, then you finally start seeing some progress above ground, and it starts going quicker. On the addition, this is for the back area where the gym is. This is where there'll be an addition. So again, some of the groundwork and some patchwork of some lines that have been relocated and things moved around. Have to patch that up. And this is the slab for Building A, which is the office building addition. The trenches are done. They're starting to install the reinforced rebar for the beams. And so they'll probably pour this later this week or early next week. Along Haynes, like I said, the parking lot here in the front has been completed. We got sidewalks, ADA compliant ramps, a new sidewalk along Haynes with, of course, the fire line and the fire hydrant there shown on that photo on the left. And this is a part of the parking lot addition that's already been paved on the big parking lot. And you can see there in the background the chiller plant, which will be demolished once we have all the new electrical hooked up. And there's a big parking lot that's been paved already with some landscape islands. They'll be pouring the footings on the islands, which will be for the parking lot lights, and there's some landscaping irrigation lines that are in there as well that's required by code. So that's been done. At some point, we'll see when we can start moving the cars there to park, striping and so forth. So we've made quite a bit of progress there. Any questions on Treasure Hills, Phase 2?
May I have just one question, please?
Yes, Ms. Ferry.
I apologize, I should know this already, but I try to keep a summary in my mind of our perimeter schools and our central schools and the student population they're built for. What is the student population now for Treasure Hills? Did we expand that?
I think we're right around 800, right, Julio?
Still at 800?
Yeah, it's a little bit over 800. Yeah, we did not expand the overall population for that campus, but it's sitting around 800.
Okay, thank you.
And the capacity we're building it to for max capacity is about 850.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to go anywhere near the 900 because then the school just gets too large.
It's too
It
big.
used to be 900.
Right.
didn't it?
Well, they were over capacity.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr.
Please.
Pettis, Dr. Pettis.
Please.
I have a stupid question. Don't yell at me and don't get mad at me. But considering the new construction, the renovations, and that kind of stuff, how many trailers can we fit on the property now?
Construction trailers or modular trailers?
Student trailers, in case we
Oh.
to follow up on Jerry's question.
Well, they actually have two right now, two doubles that are staying in case they need some additional space. We could take them out, but the principal wants to hold on to them now until things settle down to see if he's going to need them or not. So we actually have two on there already.
Well, I guess it just begs the question that, I mean, I think that's why Jerry was asking. This has been one of those schools where it's always been over full for many, many years. And so, you know, and again, maybe this whole situation helps a lot and that kind of stuff. And of course, the whole situation with the, I don't know what we're doing with the little ones, right? And so maybe at some point we have a follow-up discussion, district-wide discussion with regards to, and no one wants to mention the word rezoning or anything like that, but, and you didn't hear me say that, but I guess the question is, what are we doing to sort of pair up schools and to sort of, you know, create capacity and space at some of these bulging schools? And I know Dr. Cavazos and y'all had a plan for that. Maybe we should have a discussion for that, you know, down the road, just kind of how are we doing with capacity and how are we doing with some of these, like Dr. Rodriguez and, you know, those kind of things, you know?
Right, no, we have had those discussions before already, because, yeah, we do have the zoning, but we also have that open enrollment concept where the principal has the discretion of accepting more and more kids, and we could add more modulars and classrooms and keep adding up to 1,000 if we want to, but we've decided in-house that we do have to put a limit because then it's the manageability of a elementary school comes into question as to how big is too large where it starts affecting the effectiveness of the instruction, right? So we've had the discussions that we want to cap it at around 850, but I know more people want to go there, and then they have to be told yes or no whether they can be allowed out of zone or out of district.
Well, and before Dr. Noel, it seems like she may want to chime in here, but before that, I will also remind everyone that, and we're just right now limiting our discussion to face-to-face. Now you have the concept of, you know, hybrid and sort of online, you know, remote enrollment. So, and just throwing that out there. But anyway, Dr. Miller, please.
That's a good point, yeah.
You know, some great points there, Dr. Bettis. I know we're getting ready to have discussions as well about our early childhood programs. And to your point about pairing and things of that nature, you know, we have Carmen Alvarez is chomping at the bit for us to start looking at what we do with our early childhood programmings and whether we need to have some specialized campuses for things like that. And so I think that we will see some work happening in that arena, but also, you know, as we've said before, there was a lot of lessons learned from COVID and a lot of opportunities that have opened up to where hopefully there will be opportunities for us to look at instruction that's not necessarily tied to just brick and mortar. And so we do see potential for, you know, a building may accommodate 800, but there are other ways to be able to still do instruction in buildings like that. So definitely things that we're going to be looking to explore.
Great discussion.
Okay.
Okay, if no further questions, we'll move on to the school Intravestities project. This is a project that was awarded to Spyglass Construction at $278,000. This project was part of a safety grant that we got through the COPS program, the National COPS program, sending funds to the state, and the state creating this grant. So we got $300,000 from this grant. And we picked Rodriguez, Dishman, and Wilson because they're the schools that are further out in the perimeter where it takes a little longer for some first responders to get to. And just as an example here, I know it's a little hard to read. I try to make it as big as I could, but it's kind of hard to read. But basically, follow my cursor here. These are the double doors that you enter Wilson. There's a little vestibule that's non-air conditioned. It kind of tries to keep the cold air from escaping. Another double door, and once you go in there, you can just go throughout the campus. And you have administration here on the right, but they can't really stop you. Once you're in, you can just go into the school. So look at the left section here, it's the same thing, the double doors. But once you get into the main foyer, there's another new set of doors there that will be locked. Once the bell rings and everyone's in their classrooms, they'll do lockdown like they do right now at the front entry doors. So you cannot pass this point. And now you're inside the school, and you can talk to the secretary, and they'll screen you, and if you're okay, then they'll buzz a button to let you into the school. And this whole new door system, along with the glass and the wall of where the secretary is, will be upgraded to materials that are, I think they call it class 4 or class 5. It's not bulletproof like a bank or a police department as far as bulletproof glass, but it's the next level down for this type of protection that we're requiring, where low caliber type weapons may not puncture the glass, but the higher calibers can, but it'll just leave a hole, but it will not shatter the glass. So it buys time for people to run, hide, for first responders to get there. So it buys a lot of time, and we worked with this with Mr. Danny Castillo, our Director of Emergency Management, with his background in police, Chief of Police background, and work with the architect on the recommended classification for this type of protection for these entry foyers. So we're going to be doing these 3 schools like that. We're going to learn from these 3, and now we know what they cost, roughly $90,000 to $100,000 each on the average for elementary schools. And then we're going to, once we finish this project, we'll do a master plan on the entire district, come up with a budget, and then see when we can phase those in as monies are available to do the entire district this way, from small schools to large schools. And so this has been a very good learning experience for us because we've never done a project like this. So we got the contracts in, they're about to be signed. I took the contract to Dr. Noyola, and guess what? Our contracts still say Dr. Arturo Cavazos. So we got to change the names now. Alicia now signs the document, so we have to make that change. Hopefully get it to her tomorrow, and we'll sign it, and the contractor will be on his way to start the project.
Should we get a temporary restraining order? Maybe it'll expedite the process to get a TRO.
Yeah, she'll probably want bulletproof glass on her door now.
If you don't mind.
I sure hope he's not listening.
All right, any questions? Any questions?
I'm sorry, I do have one. I really appreciate these meetings because the give and take flow of information is just really helpful. Oscar, great. I think this is really great. You know, these kinds of things that are ongoing are just hugely significant. I mean, we're talking life-saving. I'm wondering, where are we in Milam? Is thinking of, you know, outside schools. Is that to come in the next phase of your investigation? Or, you know, I remember that they have a partial setup out there already.
Yes, Milam is not in these are the first 3 only under the grant. But the next, what we're going to do is look at schools that have issues that once you walk into a school, you can just keep walking without being seen. Those are the schools that we're going to put a higher priority. For example, I believe Travis, you walk in and there's no office there. You have to go down the hall past 3-4 classrooms to the left, then you see the office. So that one's going to be a little tricky. We may have to reverse the administration more towards the front and with the classrooms, things like that. That'll be a bigger project to work on. But I think about Coakley, you walk in, the secretary's right there, and there's no protection. You can go straight through the campus. So that could be one of a higher priority, right? So we're going to be looking at that. Milam does have a little bit of protection to the office with an additional door and glass that other schools don't. So that's how we're going to be looking at prioritizing the next group, depending on how much funds we designate for next year.
And I would just say one other thing, if I could, please, Mr. Chair, and that is, Oscar, don't forget the TASB grants for great ideas. You know, you've come up with several already in our district, and it's not a great deal of money, but it is a little bit of money. If they're still doing that, the incentives used to be $1,000 for a good idea. This is a really good idea.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fleury. Any other questions? We'll move on to the big project, the early college UTRGV project. We're about 38% complete. Structure's going up pretty fast. This percentage is based on the last pay app, so I'm sure they're a little bit more closer, probably closer to 42, 43%. That every week, more and more work goes on. On the outside, they're starting to put the envelope green board, sheathing board, and on top of it, on top of this will go the insulation and then the final product on brick or panels. And this is a building entrance, and you can see there they put the roof deck on this one. They'll be pouring concrete on top of that later, and you got some of the sheathing, a lot of the metal studs for the walls interior, which none of this was there last month when I presented it. Again, they're starting to put all the steel deck up on top to prepare for the concrete roof and all the exterior bracing and studs on the outside.
School board meeting.
Here's just another view of the eastern facade faces north.
Amazing.
And some of the interior. This shot on the left is upstairs. Of course, there'll be railing there on the left. And then from the bottom looking up, that's the same. You'll be railing right here. Walking up there is basically this sidewalk here. And look, once you're up there looking down, that's the beginning of the learning stairs. In the big commons area, you'll have the learning stairs that you'll go up to the second floor. There'll be a nice lobby, and then you have the lecture room back over here, focused centered on the learning stair. On the outside, the big parking lot and the student parking lot and bus loop is all concrete for the buses. They've already got that done. Then they'll start working on the asphalt portion for the parking spaces. Just another shot from the second floor. And that's where we are on the early college. Any questions on the early college project?
Beautiful. Just beautiful.
Move on to the Transition Academy. This one's also going pretty fast. About 58% complete. This one also has the sheathing, and the exterior Deic is a wall envelope sheet that they put to protect it from moisture intrusion. Builds up the building very nice. The roof up and top is done. Again, just different views. This is the back patio covered area. And then inside, they already got the inspections approved, so they can start closing up with sheetrock. And this hood here is for the kitchen. And then another view further back in the kitchen, you can see the hood there, the beginnings of the middle island, where they'll have a nice countertop there. The light fixtures being recessed into the sheetrock. Then they're sanding all the seams, and they'll paint when they're done. They'll shoot the acoustic. They're doing all the electrical wiring inside. Here's some of the cabinets that already came in. And again, just sheetrock all the rooms, the big classrooms as well.
Excuse me.
What we're going to do next is the landscaping was not included in the project. We're going to do that on our own to try to save money and outside of the general contractor and their markups. So we're meeting with the landscape architect and the architect to go over the plan, make any revisions we want, and bid that out ourselves. And we'll probably be awarding that at the next board meeting, hopefully. So that's the Transition Academy. Any questions on that project?
Looks good.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. It's come up before, but I mean, how often? I mean, I don't know if we're just leaving it to chance, or it just comes up, you know, periodically, or just opportunistically, or I don't know what the right word is, but I wonder if we could be more purposeful about it. And that is, how often do we get our students involved in these projects? I mean, we have so many projects around the district, and you know, I just feel whether it's from an architectural standpoint, from a you know, HVAC, from a landscaping. I mean, there's got to be ways that we can involve our faculty and our students, you know, in a meaningful way that takes advantage of the project, but also, you know, allows for, you know, an educational piece, an experiential learning opportunity. I mean, can y'all comment on that, perhaps?
Yes, we are planning something like that on this project. We're going to be, Joseph Villarreal actually is working with HAIF and some other groups, community members, for projects, once this is complete, for them to donate some funds and then get our students working, our special education students to help out as well once it's occupied and being used, by helping them make a walking trail, butterfly garden, pavilion. Those type of improvements are something that they're planning to do, similar to what Dr. Bettis just mentioned. On other projects, probably projects more that we use under maintenance in-house, we can involve more of the CATE programs, building, AC, electrical, things like that. And when you involve general contractors, we got to be a little careful using students there, but unless it's some kind of mentoring program. But this project will have some of that once we open it up.
And so, and that's why, I mean, that's why I was asking, right? I mean, it would be nice where in the future, yeah, it's done in a more purposeful fashion where we, you know, we get our contractors and all of our, you know, all of the vendors and all of the companies that do business, whether it's an engineering, architectural firm, whether it's a, you know, general contractor, or whether it's a, you know, HVAC, you know, plumbing, whatever, but they're just used to, when they're going to sign on for a bid to do work for HCISD, that, you know, they're going to get some requests for some students to come hang around and at appropriate times, right? I mean, I know that yeah, you're right, they're not going to be, you know, operating a crane or whatever, but you know, at appropriate times in the contract, at least, you know, even the conversations and the observation of the work that's going on can be pretty impactful for these young students to see, like, whoa, that's pretty cool. I didn't know an engineer did all this, or I didn't know an architect did all that, and the kinds of coordination, right? We're talking about soft skills and that kind of stuff. The kinds of coordination that's involved between, you know, different professionals doing the project, you know, and that kind of stuff. And
We
so
got insurance for them.
I feel that it can be done, even with the UTRGV project. I know you get
Yeah,
into
sometimes we
some
have to work in
different
the
legal
auto-
dynamics when you're working with the university and the state, but still it can be done, you know.
Cover the contractor too?
Right.
You know, I would just like to comment on that, Mr. Powers, if I could. I think that is just a capital suggestion. I really do. You know, back in Ralph Jennings' days, you may all know that our students were literally building homes in Harlingen, turnkey homes, start to finish, sell a house, and that was part of Ralph's program. You know, and I just remember too that there have been such comparisons made in the past too about the school in Mercedes in the engineering program compared to ours. And it seems to me like, when Nolan's following Nolan's line of thought there, we have so much more to offer. I mean, opportunities for this sort of thing that, you know, under your leadership, Oscar, there's so many things that we have to offer that, say, a school in Mercedes, they may think they're doing the top academic work, yet at the same time, our students could not only have the academics, but just very on-site training. I think it's a fabulous idea. And, you know, when we were talking with Dr. Noyola in the very beginning about, you know, her thoughts for the future, one of the things that impressed me a lot, Dr. Noyola, was that you were thinking beyond just brick and mortar. You were thinking about programmatically, how do we transform? And this could be one of those ways. This could be one of those ways. So thanks, Noah. I think that's a great idea. I'm sure you're constrained by all sorts of laws and certifications and everything else, but got to be a way. And you're the great thinker on that, Oscar. So it'll be fun to see.
And we've actually had conversations around those lines, Mrs. Fleury, about how do we bring different programs together? Where does the electrical and the plumbing and construction, and how do they all come together? Because on any project, it's not one area that's working. We have, when construction is happening, you have multiple groups working on site at the same time, right? And so we, actually, Raul Alvarez is exploring this concept of how do we create a project that can be completed within a span of a year. So they've been having discussions around this concept of those tiny homes that people they've just become such a trend. And so could a tiny home, one of those small homes, become a true project for our apprenticeship program? Where you have students that are in the plumbing program and in the construction and in the electrical can all come together to create these projects. But going back to Dr. Bettis's point, we have a number of students that we place as part of their practicum that are out at different locations getting these types of experiences, and we actually have a degree of insurance that's available. I know sometimes that's the biggest concern is the liability on students, but we actually have insurance that covers our students when they're in those types of settings. So, I love the idea of exploring as we do these various projects with all of these companies. Can we somehow tie the opportunity for students to be a part of this, and even if it's on-site visits or things of that nature, just so that they can get more of that real-life experience. Sometimes we're constrained to the campus because that's all we have, but I love the idea of we have ready-built opportunities for kids to see what it truly looks like to put together these types of huge projects. So I think that's certainly something that's worth exploring.
And Doc, I'm sorry not to belabor the point, but I do recall that several years ago when we revisited the ranking criteria, we did mention that those companies that actually try to engage our students, should be given more points for that. And I don't know if that's being done. But it's something I think we should relook at to where they know that it's something that we want them to do is to engage our students. And then lastly, I will say, I think we even can be more purposeful about it. Not just leave it to chance, leave it to the company, leave it to whatever, because they may get the bid if they're just come in at a low enough price and forget about the student engagement part of it. But we don't leave it to chance by having our schools, our principals, like of the high school, of our secondary schools, let's say, right? Or you can have, especially the high schools, I would say, but even some of the middle schools, where you have the principals have a point person in charge, and not just a formal, like you said, the apprenticeships. That's all great, but even the point person at each school that says, listen, we are going to be looking out for opportunities for our students, and a student can come forward with a project and say, hey, I see you're building this or over there or whatever. I want to get to know that, the plumbing company, and I want to see how they do that, or and there should be a formal way to kind of like formalize those educational, those experiential learning opportunities, I think, even if it's not a formal apprenticeship, even if it's just sort of like, okay, for the next 3 weeks, you can spend a few hours doing that, if and then you can find a way to formalize the project to where there's something meaningful that comes out of it at the end, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Great thinking.
Okay. Moving on to the next project is the Gutierrez Fine Arts Academy Phase 2. We've already completed Phase 1. This particular phase does more of the outside work, the metal chiller screen that we're going to be doing around the chiller plant. There's a metal outdoor structure that's for the CAPE program, that's for the sciences. Painting the metal trim roof to color coordinate the school colors. And some outdoor sculpture work representing the arts and the sciences that'll be done as well. We went out for bids and we got 5 proposals. These are the 5 contractors. We did meet yesterday to rank We'll be making a recommendation at next Tuesday's board meeting. But we got some really good prices. Our budget was $195,000, so they were all pretty close, and a couple of them that were below that. So we feel good about this, and we'll present it next Tuesday at the school board meeting. Just a picture of the screening around the chiller and the outdoor structure that we're going to be doing at Gutierrez in the back area.
Great, looks great.
The marquees, we had some progress here in the break. The Gutierrez Middle School sign went up. We're just waiting for the top panel that has the name, and then that one will be done. Over at Zavala, they also erected the sign. And you can see here in the background, the little marquee sign that's been there for a long time, there's new marquees replacing the old one. And there's a school name, the color matching the school blue. So that one's up.
That's good.
The Harlingen High School South also, the sign is up. We're just waiting for the top panel. And all of this is the digital board that'll be programmed from within the school and displayed, and all the programming will be done in-house there at the school. So we're almost, we just need Vernon Middle School. We're trying to finalize the wording and the design in that one. And since we had the break, we couldn't get the final feedback, so hopefully this week we'll iron that out and get that out to the vendor to start manufacturing. The baseball fields, G&G Construction's working on the background netting that we're doing at the baseball fields and softball fields at both Dixieland and Keys. This one's at Keys. These are the 4 poles that are erected, and then they're going to have that netting system that's going to be all up in front. And we're doing a concrete footing that's going to have a half wall, which will be the backstop for behind the catcher's mound. And there'll be padding put up against that half wall so the balls don't get scuffed when they hit the back. And then the anchoring for the netting system will be in the new block wall. So that'll be the next step. So here are the softball fields. They already have a netting system. So all we're doing here is a new block wall. Because we used to have just wood anchored on a chain link fence. And it was always having issues and rotting and problems. So this will be a permanent solution. And it'll match the dugouts, the half walls that are made out of concrete walls. It'll continue through and over to the other dugout. So it'll be more consistent and nicer looking. And again, here's just a pour of the footing that they did, and they're going to get ready to start building the half wall. And these are the poles. The original poles were put in kind of quickly, but once the engineer reviewed it, they were a little shallow. They needed to go down another foot. So they took the poles out, had to reset them, and put them in place. That was the first picture that I showed.
Mr. Chair, I think we need an outing, we need to take batting practice when it's all ready to go. And that reminds me, whatever happened to our golfing outing? We need to make sure these facilities are safe for our students, Mr. Chair. I wanted to make that comment on the record.
Very conscientious.
Okay.
Well noted.
And lastly, we have some fencing work going on at Austin Elementary as part of the IB World Improvements. We also have lettering that we've got with Megamorphosis to help us to design it. We got the specs. We let it out during the holidays. Later this week, we'll get the prices in and hopefully get a good price and issue a PO to a vendor and get the new letters on Austin and Sam Houston. Also part of that was this fencing project. The old fencing there along the alleyway, it's a little hard to see there, but you have barbed wire up on top that we wanted to get rid of. It didn't have the right look that we wanted. So it's all going to have this new chain link fence. It's already around the big parking lots and the behind the kitchen, the outfields. So they're working up along the alleyway now on this section. So we're about 65% complete. So they're working on that. And the last part will be doing some underground lighting that we're going to be doing, so it'll flash up and wash the wall at night so you can see the lettering of the school. So those are just little bits and pieces that we're doing at Sam Houston and Austin Elementary. And lastly, we do have one change order that we had over at the courtyard at Vernon, an area that kept sinking and the erosion of the soil. They checked all that for leaks and found out that there was just a there was no reinforcement or wall to hold back the dirt. So they backfilled in, they followed the instructions of the architect. It was about, from the contingency of $5,700, it cost about $2,785. So we still have $2,900 left in that contingency fund. So that's the only little change order that we had. That's the end of my presentation, unless you have any questions, Mr. Chairman.
No, sir, thank you very much. Just always so much going on. And Oscar, I'm just curious, I've noticed lately with some of the things that I'm involved in, are you seeing material costs go through the roof right now?
Yes, especially wood. Wood has gone up about 35%.
Is that, but are our bids on all these jobs, are they solid? I mean, or do they have flexibility to go up on those materials?
We're still, a lot of these were bid out when right before the price hikes went up about 2 months ago. So the new ones that we're bidding out, we're seeing higher prices where there's a lot of wood involved. If it's just concrete and steel, not so much. But with the California wildfires, all the hurricanes we had nationwide, it really put a burden on the wood products.
Wow.
I noticed plywood's gone from like $9.95 to $25 a sheet.
$25 a sheet from 15, yeah.
Wow.
Okay, thank you, Oscar. Great job. Thanks to you and your department for all your hard work. Julio, you want to take us through the financial report?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Powers, Dr. Neola, committee members. So let me share this. I think I can. Hey, can you all see that?
No.
No.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Bingo.
Yes, we can.
Little bigger, little bigger.
They're a little bit bigger.
There you go.
That helps.
There you go.
Good.
That's perfect.
Okay. So this is the construction funds report through December 31st, 2020. And again, in column C is year 1 through 5 of the budget. And we have $60 million from TRE into the year 1 through 5 again, $10 million from TRE and another $10 million from the maintenance tax notes that the board approved a couple years ago. And then in year 6 of the budget, which is the current year, we have a total budget of $22 million, $10 million from TRE, $8 million from early college, from UTRGV for their portion of early college, and then $4 million that we had said that we're going to move over from the fund balance for renovation of Treasure Hills. So again, 60 million and 22, so it's a total of $82 million in 6 years. We spent year 1 through 5 of the TRE budget, $54.2 million. And this year we spent and encumbered another 26.8. Year 6, spent and committed. So we have total about $80.9 million of money that have been spent and committed for the first 6 years. We have a balance of a little bit over $1 million left for this year, and that's where we're at now. We anticipate that we're going to use most of that here pretty soon, so we're going to be pretty fully spent by the end of the year. Be glad to answer any questions that committee members might have.
Wow.
Any questions? Any questions, anyone?
Wow.
All right, if there are no questions, we stand adjourned.
Okay, great. So I'm excited to call the Transforming Teaching and Learning Committee meeting to order in 2021. And pursuant to Governor Abbott's temporary suspension of meeting laws, this meeting will be conducted via audio visual and is open to be viewed by the public. And we have several really good agenda items today. And the first of which is going to be presented by Ms. Corton about teacher incentive allotment update. Ms. Corton.
Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Neola, senior team, and audience, I'm going to share my screen now. I hope that you can see that. As Dr. Reininger mentioned, I am here this afternoon to provide our monthly update for teacher incentive allotment. And so as we go through today's presentation, part of what I will be talking a little bit about is design teamwork in December and the start of our stakeholder feedback loop. As we spoke about earlier this year, Feedback is going to be essential in the development of our application for the teacher incentive allotment, and so I'm happy to be able to report on 2 of our first loops of feedback. So up to now, we have been sharing with you that we've been working with our leadership team, with our design team leaders, and so it was really nice to bring a larger design team together in the month of December. And so in December, we officially launched our design teams, which included, of course, senior team liaisons that are on the call with us today. But in addition to our senior team members, we have principals, assistant principals, and various roles across the district, one of which is always going to be a teacher. So we have, just as a reminder, we have 4 design teams, and on every single one of our design teams, we have a minimum of 1 teacher who is the voice of teachers at that design team. So I do want to talk a little bit and provide a recap of our design team work from December. As we opened up all of our work, we made sure that everybody was very well informed about what the teacher incentive allotment is all about. And so that was important that we start with a common understanding. We also covered things like goals and the rationale for our district as to why we are embarking on the teacher incentive allotment. So then quickly thereafter, we divided up into our 4 design teams. Data sources on the screen, let me back up a little bit, but on the screen are just a recap of the work that we did during our design team meetings, but I've also provided some next steps for each one of these design teams. And so with data sources and eligibility matrix, that is led by Deic Garcia. And so in their discussion, they opted to divide up an elementary and a secondary component, because truthfully, as we look at the rubric for eligibility, there are some very unique elements at each the elementary, the middle, and the high school level. And so we do have a principal that is leading each one of those 3 pods. And so Dahlia's team had a chance to kind of look at what we currently have in our systems as far as student growth and how we measure that. Next steps for them, we came back on yesterday, and Dahlia and her team already started looking at the next part of their work. But essentially what that design team will be looking at is to further define options for how we're going to measure student growth outside of the tested areas. And so when we think about tested grade levels, STAR is one way that we measure growth, but there's so much more beyond STAR that we can use. And so that's what that team is looking at right now. The other big part about data sources and eligibility is how we're going to track all of that. And so along with Mrs. Garcia and her design team, that's another part of their next step. So they're going to be looking at data systems and how we can track the information that we'll need to keep track of during the RTIA phase. Our second design team was the T-Test design team. All things T-Test fall with Mrs. Romero and her design team. And as part of what they looked at, they studied our current T-Test structures and practices and really did a deep dive into what T-Test looks like today in our system. Next steps for that design team is to really look at how we do T-Tests, how we can improve T-Tests, and in particular, studying the observation cycle. As we have talked about previously, we're already working with our administrators to ensure that we are calibrated across the district, but that's one topic that Mrs. Romero and her design team are doing a deeper dive into with as far as their next steps are concerned. They're also looking at how to track data, how to track student growth and what that looks like in the scope of T-Tests. So as I mentioned, everything T-Tests will fall in that design team, and so Mrs. Romero is leading that for us. In the additional factors design team, we have Dr. Villarreal and his 2 principals that are leading that particular design team. And so they had a discussion and looked at other models, because additional factors, if you recall, that gives us leeway as a district to look at other items that might be of value for us to look at when considering the teacher incentive allotment and what teachers can qualify for. So under additional factors, the conversation came to this entire concept of looking at student voice and possibly parent voice. So the next steps with Dr. Villarreal and his team on the additional factors design team will be to look at a few surveys, look at other models, successful models, districts that have captured the student voice and the parent voice, and to start there with what our TIA application can look like in the way of additional factors. And then lastly, Mr. Strubart and I lead the systems redesign and professional development plan. And so part of our conversation really took us to everything we learned from Singapore. If you recall, as we went to Singapore and learned about that model, there is a very attractive pathway for teachers to follow. And so as you're looking at teachers, and we're in particular at TIA, there is a lot of room to grow in teacher pathways. Essentially, our next steps with that particular design team will be to look at teachers in this way. You look at them from their first day in the district all the way through retirement, and what has to happen within that time for them to have the greatest level of success and to always have an opportunity to grow and to learn. And so that's an update of where we are with our design teams and what we did in December and what we will do this coming month. The other exciting topic that I will touch on is feedback. As we know in HCISD, the voice of our stakeholders is always prominent, and perhaps that's why we have had so much success with all these innovations. We always bring people in the design phase because it's critical that we look at programs such as TIA through different lenses. So last month, Dr. Niola and I had a chance to visit with the District Educational Improvement Committee, DEIC, and I'll share some feedback there. And I also had a chance to have our first meeting with our teacher focus group. Now, our teacher focus group, those are teachers that are nominated at the campus level. And then Mrs. Romero and Mr. Villarreal and I studied every nominee. And so we put together a solid team of teachers that it's one representative from each one of our campuses that sit on that teacher focus group. So now it's time to look at what our feedback was. So from our DEIC, I do have to say we kept our feedback rather broad because on DEIC you have parents, you have community members, you have people from central office and from the campus level. And Dr. Niola and I posed this question, very simple question, but a loaded question. How do you define an effective teacher? And so as we asked that question, we put them into breakout rooms in their Zoom, and we have so much valuable information that they were able to give us. And so there's just a few of them on the screen that I'm going to let you kind of peruse, because honestly, there's so much feedback that we received from them that it would just inundate our screen. I will say that there were some very common themes from DEIC. And remember, you have parents, you have teachers, you have central office and community members. And so through DEIC, we learned that an effective teacher, as perceived by people outside of our district and internally, they're looking at people who are lifelong learners. They're looking at people who value teaching their students, but also value teaching their colleagues. And they're always going to be a continuous learner. So that was something that was very prominent in the themes of the feedback from DEIC. And not only that, they also talked about being an effective communicator and being able to effectively communicate with different audiences. So that was part of our feedback from DEIC. Now, as we looked at our teacher focus group, we asked some different questions with our teachers. We asked things in particular about if you are thinking about the design of a TIA application, what are some components that you think would be important for us to consider as we're creating the rubric for eligibility? And what our teachers told us is that number one, we want all teachers to be able to be eligible to access some type of incentive. And so to have the opportunity to access that is what they were asking for. And then, very in line with the Singapore model, one of the questions we asked is about retention of these highly effective TIA teachers. And here's what we heard, by and far, that the incentive money on the financial end is great, and they're very excited about the opportunity. However, much like we learned when we created our Goal 2 and studied that part of our strategic plan, our teachers are also wanting incentives outside of just the financial portion of that. They're wanting the district to think a little bit about how can we provide additional incentives, such as helping our teachers get through the master's program. What about having an allotment for teachers to attend different conferences so they can continue to grow and to learn? And then lastly, in one of the conversations that I had the chance to visit with some teachers on, they talked about this whole concept about rethinking calendar, rethinking the day of a teacher, so that we can somehow find time for colleagues to pay forward some of their success. And so for me, I thought that was a huge celebration, that these teachers would be right on point with what we have been talking about for years now, about how do teachers collaborate with one another and build colleagues. And colleague to colleague, we know, is a very different type of building. So that's what our teacher focus group said. I do want to let the group know that they are very excited about the opportunity, and they focus so much on the opportunity. They also acknowledge that there's going to be things that we need to discuss and things that will come our way as TIA comes our way. But at the end of the day, they thought it was a wonderful opportunity that our district was really elevating the profession of teaching to make sure that teachers really had access to the incentive money. So I mentioned that because I know that was one of our questions at a previous design team meeting. And then lastly, I did want to take just a second. There's some important dates up on the screen there because our work with teacher incentive allotment will come at us pretty quickly. Our goal is to bring our draft presentation to our board at Transforming Teaching and Learning Committee meeting in March. And so if you think about that date, we have a couple of months that we can continue to work on the design. Come to our board at the Transforming Teaching and Learning Committee meeting with a draft of what our application will look like. Understanding that in April, we would come to you all for consideration of that plan and hope to be able to apply and submit the application no later than April the 15th. And so I just wanted to kind of reiterate those dates because I know that we have talked about the timeline, but I certainly wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of those. And so with that, I will stop my screen sharing and open up to questions and discussion.
Dr. Corton, Ms. Corton, thank you so much for the information. I'm sure there's some questions. Board, what's your pleasure?
May I make a comment, Dr. Reiniger, please? Yeah.
Please.
Thank you. Veronica, I would like to commend everyone involved with this, Veronica and Joseph, all of you, because not only is the topic timely and important and critical in this day and age, but you are doing this with such obvious intent to really make a difference. And I see that as a great positive change in our district. I think that we have been about good things for a very long time, but in terms of good things that will make a significant difference, we have taken bold and big steps to make that happen. And I see that in what you're talking about. You know, almost more than any, to me, even more than buildings and things like that. We're talking about something that really could make a huge difference. And I think that the teachers are right, that more money is fabulous and we focus a lot on that, and that's wonderful and that's nice. But that's not really what keeps people in the teaching profession. And I don't think it's always what drives people from the teaching profession. So, kudos to you. I just think it is, I would like to commend you for that, and I would just like to encourage you to keep going big. You know, this is our chance. This is our real chance. And to me, it shows the quality of the educational team that we have right on this screen right now, that we're at this point. So I really say thank you for that. So I'm excited. I'm very excited about it. This too is transformational. You know, let's make this one of the big transformations. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fourier. Any other comments or questions? All right. Well, I would just like to say that I very much appreciate the intention of ensuring that our teachers' voices are being heard in multiple ways, both by being on committee, on design team membership, but also through the focus group. And I think that I just want to continue to encourage you to have as much diversity in opinion and thought from your teacher community, so that we hear the ups and the downs and the sideways now before we roll it out. I think that sometimes, there's more risk in hearing things that are different maybe than what we expect or want, but it's going to pay off in the long run. And I just commend you for already building that. Thank you so much, Ms. Corton, for the report.
Thank you.
Any other final comments on that?
Madam Chair, I do have a quick question. I think,
Please.
Ms. Cortana, I'm sorry, I missed part of it. I had to take a phone call real quick, but I wanted to, with all the amazing work, I'm sure, at the design team levels and that kind of stuff, I just want to make sure, how should I say this? I want to make sure that your voice, that Dr. Nayola's voice, right, the voice of the senior team, that has, I guess, more of a bigger picture perspective of what we're trying to achieve and what we really need to do for this to make a huge difference, for not only talent management, but also for our students. I want to make sure that your voice and Dr. Nayola's voice and the board's voice in this is if that's a fair statement. And the other part of it is, I want to make sure that we're constantly, taking the pulse of what other districts throughout the state, especially the ones that we trust and we know and that are in the cutting edge of this. Want to make sure what are other people doing, and really constantly kind of like compare it to what we're doing, if that's a fair question.
Absolutely, and so I want to back up. I'll respond to both of those points. Great points. So I'm going to back up to the first point. And so when you talk a little bit about making sure that Dr. Nayola's voice and the senior team's voice is somewhere at the table, I will tell you that we have multiple layers of, within the span of a month, we always start with our leadership team. And so the leadership team that is working this component, of course, will be Dr. Nayola, and she's been with us all along. The senior team members that are guiding the design teams, but also Mrs. Scoggin, and making sure that we are, and Shane, and reason being is because a lot of this, we see a lot of things at our level. And so making sure that we think about the experiences, we know the direction that the district is moving in, and so we're constantly coming back to that table once a month, right before we head into design team meetings. That has helped us to kind of discuss different things, like the direction that the design teams are headed. And so the work that we're doing with the design teams, by the time we get there, we've already had at least one leadership team meeting where we're saying, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, let's talk a little bit about feedback. Because the other big thing is that, no pressure for Mrs. Garcia, the rubric component is pretty massive. And so to make sure that the work that we're doing across all design teams, we have to make sure that it's fluid and that it all interconnects, so that you don't have a design team coming in with a concept that is completely in a different direction than the other three. And so I do believe that that's important, that we start with the leadership team and then make our way through the other layers within the scope of a month. great discussion too. You know, we push back on each other, we grow each other, and we kind of open each other's minds before we get into the design team. And then secondly, your comment about looking at different districts. Our two lead researchers have brought a lot of that to us. But in addition to that, we've also made phone calls to ask people in other districts, like, how did this work? What are some of the hiccups? What are some of the cautions? And so we'll continue to do that because we've learned a lot from districts that have done it. You know, and some districts are years beyond where we are, others are more comparable. And so it also has given us a chance to know what can be in 3 or 4 or 5 years and what can be in a year or two. And so both great points. I appreciate the feedback.
It reminds me of a concept that, you know, that is probably, you know, familiar to you being part of Holdsworth, but, you know, when you have sort of a higher risk, you know, decisions, things that involve more ambiguity, more uncertainty, you know, that's when you have to have the people at the top really involved, right? You know, the people, when it's a low risk situation, logistical kinds of problems, things like that, you know, you can let management, let your people kind of handle that and empower them and let them do their work, get out of their way. But this is an area where there's a lot of uncertainty, more ambiguity, higher risk situation. Y'all need to be heavily involved in this. And the design committees, listen, I'm not undermining their work, and I'm sure they're going to come up and make things awesome and come up with some great concepts. But ultimately, if we really want to achieve what we want to achieve, from not only, you know, of course, impacting students, but of course, from a talent management standpoint, and really want to move, you know, not just incremental change, but transformational kind of deal, then we need to have, you know, our big boys and girls at the table making those decisions. This is a sort of a, you know, a senior team heavy and board heavy type of lifting here.
Right? Thank you.
Dr. Reiniger, may I just add to that, please? I would like to just take that one step further in agreement with what Dr. Pettis is saying, because I'm thinking a lot of what each of you individually has accomplished, and you have been places that many of the people who are on our teams may not yet have had the opportunity to go, whether they're positive places or whether they were challenge places for you in your lives. So you represent those who have forged a path, probably under very difficult circumstances, to get where you are. And so you have much to add to this. You have much to say. I'm thinking right now of our daughter Jill. She's really deeply involved in mentoring on the university level. And guess what she's found? It wasn't done. It hasn't been done. So they're almost, you know, the ones who had to create their path are the ones who are now working, as we are, to create, you know, a rubric, a path for those who are coming along now. So there really is tremendous merit in looking at your experiences and how you've done it, and, you know, and certainly, yes, working within it, you know, and integrated with all of these fabulous design team members who bring the perspective of, you know, we're trying to get there, help us figure it out. You're the ones who got there, and you really have some experience. So I think Nolan's right about that.
Thank you, Mrs. Bouier.
Agree. Thank you for all the comments. Really helpful. Well, let's go to our next agenda item. This is going to be presented by Ms. Melissa Parker, and it's going to be on advanced placement. So, Ms. Parker?
Can you see my screen? Okay, well, good afternoon. Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Mudiola, and senior team members. This is my annual report on advanced placement measuring participation and performance. So as always, we reflect back on our goals. And so we have goal 3 and goal 4 that we look to make sure that we're measuring all students' weaknesses and strengths, and that we develop individualized learning plans for students so that we can ensure that they have post-secondary and career readiness as they graduate from our schools. So a little bit of background about our 2020 AP exams. They were a little bit different from what we traditionally administer to our students. And so in the spring of 2020, the traditional 3-hour-long AP exams did not take place. Rather, the AP exams were administered as 45-minute web-based full response exams to students at home. Most colleges did decide to confer credit for the 2020 AP exams as though it was a normal year. Some colleges changed their credit policies and or required their own placement exams in conjunction with the AP exam scores. And we have found that no school refused to accept the results. So participation. So participation refers to our students taking the exams. And so here are traditional charts over 5 years. These particular school years are 2016 through 2020. And these are the number of students taking AP exams. So you can see a little bit of dip from 1819 to 1920, which we're expecting because the students were learning at home. And so we face some challenges there. The students earning, this is the number of students earning a score of 3 or more. And I'd like to remind you that the AP exams are scored 1 through 5, and 3, 4, and 5 scores are considered passing. This is the number of students taking AP exams by campus. And so you can see in red is Harlingen High School with 262 students, Harlingen High School South with 282, Irving College High School, which is the dual enrollment campus. And we do have support for our AP program there, and 11 students decided to challenge those exams. And then at School of Health, 100 students. So the number of students scoring a 3 or better by campus, 108 students at Harlingen High School, 115 at Harlingen High School South, Irving College High School 2, and 47 students at Harlingen School for Health Professions. Here's the percentage of the students scoring 3 or better by campus. So both Harlingen High School and Harlingen High School South at 41%, Irving College High School at 18%, and Harlingen School of Health Professions at 47%. So now I move on to performance. And this is where we look at the exams. And so before we were looking at students, the number of students passing, we're going to look at individual exams. So the total exams that were administered, keep in mind that this takes place over a 2-week period. There are morning sessions and afternoon sessions, so students can take multiple exams. And so we administered 1,246 exams. Again, a little bit of dip from the previous year. The number of exams with a score of 3 or better, 415, down from 461 the year before. number of exams with a score of 3 or better by campus, so 144 at Harlingen High School, 204 at Harlingen High School South, 2 at Early College High School, and 65 at Harlingen School of Health Professions. So here is our performance by campus. This is the number of exams with a 3 or better score by the total number of exams. The percentages that were shown before were students, and these are exams. And so 32% of the exams at Harlingen High School had passing scores, 36% of the exams at Harlingen High School South, Early College High School, 17%, and Harlingen School of Health Professions was 30%. This table shows our district AP subject scores of 3 or better, so you can see the total number of subjects on the left-hand side, and so those are the titles of the exams that we offered. The number of 3 is in the next column, the number of 4s and 5s to continue, with the total number passing and the total number taken on the far right. So these are all 4 campuses combined, so district scores. This is the same table delineated for Harlingen High School. The same table for Harlingen High School South. For Early College High School. Harlingen School of Health Professions. And now moving on to AP Scholars. So last month, before Christmas, we honored our AP Scholars at the school board meeting, and so we have 67 scholars this year, down from 81 the year before. Total AP Scholars by campus, Harlingen High School had 22, Harlingen High School South 37, there were none at Early College High School, and there were 9 at Harlingen School of Health Professions. So a little bit about looking forward to the AP exams here in 2021. The College Board has issued the following statement regarding the AP exams after such a significant change last year. And so the AP program will support in-school testing in 2021, the plans, because administering exams in school maximizes access and opportunity. The safety concerns still prohibit any students from testing at school. They're saying that they will provide a contingency testing option that contains full course content. So the plan of the College Board has not wavered on this statement since August, is that they are planning in-school testing for this coming May. So AP exam registration has taken place. If you will recall, last year our AP exam registration moved from the spring to the fall, which was actually a plus for us because we already had all of our students registered, and it was really, really easy to submit those orders and plan for the testing, as far as knowing which students were testing and what subject areas and what the needs were. And so again, we have already conducted our fall registration, and we have placed, we have more than 1,200 exams that have been ordered. More registrations are expected in the spring semester. Students have an opportunity for late registration, and also we have courses that are 1 semester long, and that registration doesn't take place until February. So the AP exam dates for the 2021 school year are May 3rd through the 7th and May 10th through the 14th, and so we've moved back to the traditional first 2 weeks in May as AP exams are usually given. Last year, due to the situation, they were given in June. And so the College Board is really moving back to their traditional processes. Should social distancing still be necessary, the College Board is saying that schools will have additional options to ensure all students can be tested across multiple dates in May. And so as we get closer, we can evaluate our situation and work with the College Board to come up with possibly a different calendar and more spread out so that we can meet the needs of our students and our district. So at this time, I'll take,
Madam Chair?
Yes, please, go ahead. And I do want to apologize to everyone that my video, when I have my video on, I'm not able to see the presentations or your faces, so I've chosen to go off screen so I can keep up.
We can certainly understand that. It looks pretty foggy there in the Bay Area.
Yes, it is a little foggy right now.
So, question I have, and maybe it's a little bit of a tangent question, but I promise that there's relevance here, but do we have data, and this is probably a question as much for you, Dr. Reininger, as maybe for our illustrious, faculty here at HCAC, but do we have data out there that correlates AP participation and testing with subsequent, enhanced or better performance in college? In other words, students that take and participate in AP and then take the test actually not only have better grades in college, but persist and graduate. Is there such data out there?
so specific, drill down to student-specific data, we do not. There are a number of research items that you can read and that say that AP students are better prepared, they do better, and so there's that. But as far as drill down to individual students,
I would, and maybe Dr. Reininger, I don't know, I mean, to me, I would be shocked if we couldn't find some data out there that would actually make that connection. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would be shocked if there wasn't some sort of, thesis or doctoral, dissertation, or I would be, and I don't know how powerful the data would be and what the number size or sample size would be, but I would just be surprised if there wasn't some sort of connection. And the reason I bring it up is, it seems to be the most pervasive reason folks don't participate is for the exact wrong reason, is because they think it's going to be a dean, some of these classes are going to be a dean to their GPA and their class ranking. But I bet if they had the knowledge that, wait a minute, you do better in college if you do this, we'd have more interest in folks taking, classes and taking and that kind of stuff. And so that's why I asked the question, because I think it could really change the thinking on the benefit of it. I do believe it helps, but I don't know if it's true in the data, where the data, if the data will reflect that, but it's just a question. Thank you.
There are a number of studies, Dr. Perez, that speak to a correlation, maybe not necessarily AP per se, but rigorous coursework in high school and its impact on student success at the post-secondary level. So those types of things do exist. And, you know, in general, for the most part, AP courses are what are considered the most rigorous courses at most high schools. You know,
But at the very least, we can agree on this. Qualitatively and anecdotally, you would agree.
Absolutely.
How many times do we have students tell us, gosh, I wish I had taken this course, I wish I had done this? You know, and so qualitatively, we have the data, anecdotally, we have the data. I wish we can arm our parents and our students with that information so they can help inform their decision-making, so that they can make the decision while they're still under our watch and not like have those regrets that some of the students that have shared with us in the past.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Pettis, for that question. And I would agree that we should look to the institution that administers the advanced placement tests for some of those type of data. They should be able to speak to that in general as well. I mean, at a minimum, it helps sell their product, so to speak, right? If it's worth documenting this and showing this, and then showing better persistence in college, it would be something they should be bragging about, and we should be able to find it. Some of the additional tests that students take for admission into, let's say, graduate school, unfortunately, there isn't the correlation between doing well on a SAT, let's say, and doing well in a graduate program, which is why some of the schools are moving away from that kind of measure of aptitude, let's say, for graduate school. But I completely agree. Qualitatively, it makes perfect sense. So why not, let's get that data and use it. Thanks for that question. Any other comments or questions on this topic? There's always a lot to digest in this presentation, Ms. Parker. It's really rich, so we appreciate what you've done so far. Are there any questions?
Yes, I do, please. Thank you, as always. Thank you, as always, Melissa. I'm wondering if you could, take us through a little bit of a discussion of the level of support, the comparable level of support or lack thereof that our students were able to have in this time of COVID. In the last several years, as you well know, various campuses, various teachers at those campuses have invested a significant portion of their time and efforts in additional work. So you have been clarifying and upgrading significantly the work that is taking place within the classrooms. And Melissa, do a lot of credit for that. And additionally, the district has been encouraging the teachers to go above and beyond. In many instances, Saturday review courses, night review courses. There have been some of that going on. I don't know the degree to which. Perhaps we won't expand on that in the future. But it occurs to me that the drops that we see, and we do see the drops that you've pointed out, of course, and expectedly so, may have as much to do with that. It would be interesting to know, as it does with, the obvious issues with taking exams during COVID time. Were we able, bottom line, were we able to provide any of that additional support, any of the additional tutoring, any of the additional Saturday classes, so to speak, or were they pretty much having to do this on their own? And I just think it could be really instructive, not just for understanding right now, but for the future, as we look forward to how do we best prepare our students for this. Because we all know that just sitting in the classroom, that may be a whole lot of it, but it is not the ball game. So could you talk a little bit about that, please?
I can. So, yes, you're right in that we've had very robust tutorial schedules at the schools, and students have been able to participate in those in the past, and we kept those. We kept them virtually. And so the teachers did have their tutorial. They kept their tutorial schedule. We do have a requirement for our students that they attend at least 12 hours of tutorial, and so that was kept, and they were done virtually. In addition, we moved to a new platform from the College Board last year, and so there were instructional supports in that platform that the teachers could use with the students, and so there were various tasks that teachers could also keep up with the progress of the students, and the students could see their progress on those tasks, and the tasks were related to actual AP exam questions. So there was a very interactive type of system that was implemented at the beginning of the year that we had never had before, which was amazing, because who would have known that, after spring break, we were in the situation that we were in. And so the students had already had practice, and teachers had already had practice because they were already using that platform since the beginning of the year. Additionally, the College Board surveyed every single student, and so what we do now is, through this platform, it's called AP Classroom, the students have to be registered into each section, and so the College Board knows which students are in each one of the courses, and actually in each section. It's very much like a college schedule, and so the College Board surveyed each one of the students that was registered in each one of the courses, and asked them about particular needs, specifically technology. So HEISD did a really, really great job of making sure that our students had the technology that they needed to be successful, but the College Board was an additional support. And so if any student reached out and said that they felt like maybe their internet was not going to be what it needed to be, or maybe the technology that they were using, they had a concern about that for the actual AP exam, the College Board sent technology. They sent laptops to those students to be able to take the AP exams. So some of them were even overnighted the night before, and students did receive that. So there were a lot of supports for the students, and for the teachers as well. But virtually, we were able to keep the same practices that we've had before with the tutorial schedules, whether they be during the day, in the evening, or on Saturdays. We were able to keep those supports in the district.
Well, kudos to you all. I had no idea. I think that's fabulous. But it leads to, of course, the obvious next question, which is, given all of that tremendous support, and it just sounds fabulous, all that tremendous support, we still see the dips. And so the important thing for us, I think, at this point is to learn from that through your leadership. What do we do next I think we all have at the bottom of our thinking is with the virtual learning, nationwide, everyone's saying the students went down, the academic performance went down, all of this. What you're telling me is that technology appears to have been used extremely effectively in terms of what we offered, that this was really, as you said, a very rich environment of support that was being offered and required. So that's great. But we didn't see the growth that as we plan to do even more virtual learning, perhaps in the future, we're assuming that we're going to be able to capture really significant growth as we do that. And so I think we can learn. I think your area can really be instructive for us to learn how to do that, and the students do even better. So You see what I'm saying? Am I making sense to you, Melissa?
Yeah,
I think it's a
absolutely.
fascinating question.
And I think the College Board answered that in that they have no plans to offer that abbreviated exam again. I think that was very,
Okay.
in listening to students who, especially seniors, who had had the experience of a 3-hour exam that was a combination of free response, multiple choice, and in some cases a task, and then you're going down to one free response question. That's a daunting task to us.
That's right. That's right.
And so, like I say, I think the College Board answered, that right there, in that they have no plans to do that again. They fully thought that that was going to be something that, might have been more helpful, where I do believe, especially students who may not be confident in the test-taking skills, and you have a free response question when, you're expecting to have multiple choice, and maybe another format. And so, I'm hoping that we can get back to business as usual, and the students can get back to taking the AP exams that, in a structure that they're used to and are expecting.
I just think it is so informative. I think this really can inform our work as we go forward, looking at alternative ways to use virtual learning. I'm really excited that we have this kind of input, positive or negative. It's really important. Thank you, Melissa. This is really good. Thank you.
Agreed. Thanks so much, Ms. Parker, for all of the information and the way you answer all of our questions as well. We really appreciate that. So our final agenda item, I'm going to turn it to Dr. Nyola for a discussion of future topics, a reminder of future topics.
Sure.
And before you comment, Doc, can I just say one quick thing, Dr. Noah? I want to compliment, Dr. Leininger, of course, as a chair, but also Dr. Noah, yourself, and, the presenters today, Melissa, and of course, Veronica. I love the fact that we have brief presentations. They're very impactful in their brief presentations, high level, give us enough information to so we know what's going on, but then allow for board engagement and discussion. I think this is very powerful and impactful because it really takes it to the governance level. And so I just want to compliment your team on that. This is when it's really, really, really exciting because you get sort of to really interact with the board, and then we get to ask our good questions, sometimes our dumb ones, that's fine too, but at least we get involved, and it really, really, really is a powerful thing, I think, for the district. So great job today, and I love the dialogue. Thank you.
Right.
Agreed. So this week, we anticipate that the comptroller is going to release their revenue projections for the next biennium. And so we're going to be starting having some discussions around budget, and so we will be looking to bring that back to the board based on what gets released. Certainly, we anticipate that it will not be to the degree of impact that we saw back in 2011, but we do anticipate that there will be some impacts from COVID, and so we're looking to see what kind of projections will come forward, and so we'll be coming back to our committee to talk a little bit about that with regard to budget. We are also starting some discussions around the next 5 years of our TRE, and what are those big projects and things that we need to be looking at over the next 5 years. And so that's another item that we will be having some meaningful conversations around, and certainly seeking our board input on that. Our Transition Academy is well underway, as Oscar reported earlier. And so now it's really having more discussions around the programmatic side of the house. We've had a lot of conversation about the building itself and the facilities, but coming back to more of the programmatic and what will it actually look like for our students inside those 4 walls. And so Joseph has been doing a lot of work around that, and so we'll be bringing some of those discussions back to our Transforming Teaching and Learning Committee. And then one of the other items Veronica mentioned are DEIC. One of the discussions we had with DEIC last month before we went for the break, was also our District of Innovation. And I think we did a brief write-up on that. We took to DEIC the renewal of our District of Innovation. It has certainly served us well over the last 5 years. And as we talk about the various projects that we are looking to discuss and the innovative things that we are looking to do, that DOI will certainly be a big piece. And so we will be bringing that forward at our February board meeting for approval. But that DOI is going to guide us in a number of these topics that we are talking about as we look to future Transforming Teaching and Learning Committee meetings. Dr. Reiniger. Shane, is she still?
Excellent. I look forward to all of those topics being discussed. Thank you so much for that. And with no further business to come before this committee, we stand adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day.
Good night.
Good evening.